Welcome to Fake Presidents, a real podcast about, well, you know.
Each episode, we will take a deep dive into a fictional American president from pop culture to see just how much fiction there really is. I'm Eric Buckman, a former political consultant turned TV writer.
And I'm Ben Oren, a former journalist, sometime speechwriter, and all-the-time TV producer. And today, Eric, we're going to talk about the number one movie in America. If you happen to be listening to this podcast the third or fourth week of April 2024, we are going to be discussing Civil War.
Yeah, we went to see it in theaters. We are recording our thoughts as quickly as we could get together after seeing it. And now we're releasing it to you to talk about the president in this movie, a president named... Ben, did you happen to catch the name of this president?
There's no name. Was there a name?
I don't think they ever say it.
No, they never say it.
They keep referring to him as the president. It almost feels like an antiquated thing from movies and TV shows where you hold that office in just high reverence. You don't even want to give it a fictional name because you don't think audiences would even buy the existence of a fictional president. You want them to believe this could be their president.
Which I think works for this movie. I think it would have been silly if they would have given him President Nick Offerman an actual name.
You think so? Okay, well, we'll get into it. I think we might have some disagreement on this one.
My name is Andrew Shepard, and I am the president.
So a quick summary for those who have not seen it but are still listening to it anyway, which, by the way, I'll be honest, maybe this is a spoiler or not. Maybe it's a spoiler to say this will be a spoiler-free podcast. We won't be spoiling that much of the movie because the president's not in that much of a movie.
Whoa! That's true. Those are all facts.
But yeah, plot summary. It's a movie about, let's say, 4 journalists who report on wartime activities, who seem to have a history of reporting on them throughout the globe. But when this movie picks up, these war reporters are working here in America.
Here in America, it's the tail end of an American Civil War.
It's a movie that basically transposes, I'd say, famous war imagery of the modern era that you typically see overseas. And this is from an American point of view, because we're talking about this from America. It typically happens thousands of miles away from where we are right now and from this country, and transposes it all into this very country. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, it's a road movie.
It's a road trip. They go from New York to D.C.
The long way. They go through Pennsylvania. They got to go take a detour through Pittsburgh and around to West Virginia.
But they typically, when you head to D.C., you don't go through Charlottesville. Well, I mean, I guess some candidates go through Charlottesville. Yeah. But yes, they go through Pittsburgh, Charlottesville to get to Washington, D.C. And there's not much more of a plot than that.
No, very simple.
Yeah, it's like Jurassic Park. It's all about survival.
That's what a lot of people have been calling it. They've been calling it the Jurassic Park of American Civil War movies.
Ben, now that we've gotten this thing called plot out of the way.
Yes. There's a cast and crew. I mean, this movie has some wonderful people who made it. Written and directed by Alex Garland, I didn't even know this. He started off as a novelist.
Oh.
Yeah, he wrote the novel The Beach, which was turned into a movie.
Oh, right.
By Danny Boyle, starring Mr. Leo DiCaprio.
That is correct. Yeah.
And then he wrote 28 Days Later, which is a very scary zombie movie. I don't like zombies that go that fast. I like my zombies slow. I like zombies that I can outrun.
Did he write the novelization of 28 Days Later?
He didn't get the job. He submitted a really strong proposal. It was shocking, I think, to everybody involved that he didn't get the gig. But he did get the gig to write 28 Weeks Later. So it's like, what's going on in this business? Well, he wrote those other movies, but he wrote and directed Ex Machina, which I really enjoyed that movie. That's a good movie.
So you're saying he went from novelist to screenwriter -director.
Yes, he's a hyphy.
I saw Ex Machina. It's the sexy robot movie.
Oh. Not to be confused with the sexy mannequin movie, Mannequin.
This is a presidential favor.
And now we can talk about the cast of Civil War. We got, this stars Kirsten Dunst as Lee Smith, an internationally known war photojournalist. Wagner Moura,
Yes.
a.k.a. Carlos Escobar from Narcos, a.k.a. he's a John. Is it John from Mr. and Mrs. Smith?
Correct. That's where I had most recently seen him, and so that's all I could think about was the fact that if he sneezes, he sneezes in threeses. He sneezes.
Sneezes and threeses.
Yeah.
He's him and Parker Posey on that show. Wonderful. But in this movie, he plays Joel, a journalist of some sort who works for Reuters. He came across giving like camera guy vibes, but it turns out he's more of a on-air journalist and an interviewer. He's a writer.
Okay, let's get this out of the way, because I could not figure out what the hell this guy did. Okay, so he and Kirsten, they're both writers. She has a camera.
Yes.
She takes pictures.
Loves to take pictures.
And all he can talk about, his arc for the movie, is wanting to
have the interview with the president.
Interview with the president, yes. And he never has a notepad. It's not like a podcaster. Doesn't have a microphone.
No.
I think we had more recording equipment with us in the theater to see Civil War than he did in the actual Civil War to document it.
That's correct. Even like when they're in like the shit, and the shit happens a bunch in this movie.
Yeah.
He doesn't even take anything. Even when he asks people questions, he's not like takes out his little pen and paper and like licks the pen. He's like, so tell me, who are you fighting for?
I'm picturing him as being kind of like this, like if he said Rolling Stone, I get, he's like a features writer. So he does profiles on anyone. He'll do a Hollywood celebrity on a Sunday and then be flying into Beirut on Tuesday to do some general and just mix it up. He's hardcore, but no, he's like, this is his thing, I guess, going into war zones and interviewing people.
And he rolls with Lee.
Yeah, but
they're a team of some sort. Anyway, we got Cailee Spaeny. Cailee Spaeny, young actress, plays
Which one do you want to go with, Ben? For the edit, should we want to stick to just one of those?
Oh, I'll go with Cailee Spaeny if I get to choose. She said it sounds like a fake name that the AI came up with. Cailee Spaeny. She plays Jesse. No, it's just Jesse. An upstart photojournalist. And Cailee Spaeny, she played Priscilla Presley in the Coppola movie that came out last year.
And she also played the first daughter of the Roosevelts in the Showtime TV series The First Lady, which was about Eleanor Roosevelt, but it was really about multiple first ladies.
First lady.
You have an S on first.
We got Stephen McKinley Henderson as Sammy, an older New York Times journalist, old school writer.
Yeah, he comes across as a raconteur. Like I can see him giving speeches on college campuses across the nation, if not the world, about all the places he's seen, all the wars he's witnessed firsthand.
He's like, I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what he would sing as the guitar comes playing.
And we do know he works for the New York Times. They waste no time telling us that. That's delivered very expositionally when we first meet him.
Well, it also establishes a time and a place, because it's presented as like, now it's like it's a dying area, print journalism, but in this movie they're like, it's dead, buddy. Like you clearly represent the big bloated printed news that isn't fast enough to keep up with us nimble people with cameras.
Unless it's behind the wheel of an SUV that
he comes through. Rounding. He
knows when to speed up.
He knows when to hit the pedal to the metal. Like we said, Nick Offerman plays the president.
Yes.
And then we also have, I guess the other actor of note would be Jesse Plemons.
Right. Who gets more lines than Nick Offerman.
Yeah.
Probably. Maybe it's about the same.
About the same. He's not on screen for that long, but he's Mr. Kirsten Dunst.
That is correct.
The sexual tension between them was palpable in that scene.
Yeah, as you wondered if their real life romance might be reflected in the storyline in the movie, No?
No, not at all. Maybe that's how they act with each other. Maybe that's that's the heat that keeps them going.
What kind of American are you?
What kind of American are you? That's how they get things going every day. What kind of American? I mean, what kind of American? That's like the worst pickup line ever.
Yeah, it works on.
But it works for them. That's
Yeah, it works on like farmers.
It turned out,
only.
yeah, turned out Alex Garland never even wrote that line. They were talking before. They're like, "How'd you guys meet?" He's like, "Well, funny thing, I saw her. Yeah, I saw her. I was like, I freaked out a little bit. I didn't know what to say, and first thing that came out was, what kind of American are you?" And look at me. I'm Jesse Plemons. I'm with Kirsten Dunst now, so that line works.
There's only two people who ask that question. One is Jesse Plemons' character, if you're a very racist American. The other is if you're new to America entirely and you just really want to know. Like you're Alex Garland just visiting the country the first time. Ooh, what kind of American are you? I know that's not his accent. I don't know what his real accent is.
Because he's British.
Sorry. Ben and I, we're children of the 80s. When we think of foreigners, we think of people who are presented with funny accents that you don't know where they came from.
Balky Bartakamus.
Yeah.
Pretty much it.
What kind of American are you?
Don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, and then also on the 70s show, I guess that was the next decade.
Fez.
Yeah. Although his name was Fez.
Foreign exchange student.
Oh, that it wasn't because he came from a country that they wore fezzes?
No, it's because that's what it stands for. FES. Foreign exchange student.
Get off my plane.
This is a hard movie to discuss, right? Because typically we talk about movies that have been around for a year, 2 years, decades. There's a lot of assumption that a lot of people have already seen the movie.
Right.
We don't want to spoil anything for our audience because I really enjoyed this. It's not a movie review podcast. Whether we like movies or not does not make a difference. But I enjoyed this movie. This is a movie that I want to talk with people about.
Well, that seems to be the cultural imprint it does have. Even 2 days into its release, is you have a lot of people out there who just want to talk about it, whether they liked it or not. Because there is this debate over whether or not this movie, let's be honest, this is a movie that is about journalists first, soldiers second, beautiful scenery torn asunder by war third, and politics 126th.
All the way in the back. Doesn't even make a difference.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people who are unable to be swept up by the story because
is that what the criticism is? Is because the politics are ignored, that we don't get Handmaid's Tale where it's like these religious zealots have come into power or there's not a firm reason why there is a civil war to begin with?
Exactly it. There aren't enough breadcrumbs. It's not that I think people want
really?
spoon feeding.
It doesn't fucking make a difference.
Well, I mean, here's why it made a difference to me. And that is the fact that this is a movie which presents... Okay, well, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the reason why America has been torn apart is because for some reason California and Texas specifically were the first to say, fuck this guy in the Oval Office, let's do something about it, which created a domino effect where you had other states, other state-backed groups, other militia groups saying, oh, it's a free-for-all. Let's all do what we want to do. California and Texas are the Western Front.
WF, they're the Western Forces.
Western Forces, right, yeah. They would call themselves the Front. The DC would call them the Western Front, but they're the Western Forces. And that's official. It sounds like an offhanded, they're just the forces from the West, Western Forces. No, WF is on all their vehicles.
Yeah, they have a little flag. They get a little American flag with 2 stars on it.
Still 13 stripes, not 2 stripes and 2 stars. Because you figure if you're starting from scratch, you might as well just do 2 stripes and 2 stars, right? Because the first American flag was 13 stars and 13 stripes. And
but how much time do you have? It's easier to just rip off the stars. You rip off the stars, boom, boom, boom. New flag.
Oh, and then, of course, you all the various militia groups that you meet throughout. In fact, that's one of the big mysteries that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout is every time our 4 journalist protagonists interact with people wearing frequently wearing uniforms and flak vests and fighting is, who are they fighting for? Who are they fighting against? And in many cases, it's not, even though the greater war is the Western forces versus the USA, which is still headquartered in Washington, even though they've lost a good chunk of America throughout. Except we know Missouri is still in.
We know Colorado. I think they're states that were able to sit it out.
Yeah, we hear there are numerous states where people are, I'd say they're Switzerlanding it, but they're not really. They're just able to more ignore what's going on than elsewhere. But yeah, so like, for example, Jesse Plemons, I don't think it's a spoiler to say because they make it very clear that he's skeptical of non-white people. Whatever element he represents is they're basically, racists with guns who are taking this opportunity to shoot anyone who they view as not American enough.
Well, they're war crime in left and right.
Is it a war crime if what you're doing isn't even part of the war? If you're just taking advantage of the chaos of the war?
Yes. if you're setting up a mass grave and you're like literally like salting the bodies so that they decompose faster so you don't get caught. Yeah. They're war crime and they know what's up.
It was salt? You don't know that's salt.
Maybe it was just some air freshener. I don't know. But it was probably, something to break down them bodies.
My favorite of these moments was when they run into, we'll just say, some soldiers who have like pink and blue hairspray
at the golf course. Yeah,
I didn't want to give away. I don't want to give it too much. What's going on there? It's a very tense beat. You don't know who's going to live or survive. But the idea is that you have these people who, by all accounts, are presenting as part of this massive military campaign, but when you look slightly beneath the surface, it looks like they were just at a rave the night before.
Well, to me, that whole part was just like a mini Beckett play. I mean, it was an amazing like 6 minutes of film. I mean,
very tense. Well, actually, and going back to the debate, there's very little disagreement over the quality of the filmmaking. It's a well-made film, but the debate that's been raging for the last 2 days, mostly online, the people who, like you, like the fact that, or at least, I won't say like the fact, but at least don't view its lack of politics. Because if this movie was more political, I don't think you would have liked it less, but it just didn't impede your viewing experience. The fact it didn't explain what actually started the war.
Because it doesn't make a difference. I mean, so many of the ideas are from that one scene that we just talked about. It's like, why are you shooting at them? It's like, because they're shooting at me.
Yeah. And even though they leave open this idea that any person they interact with a gun could be fighting for any number of causes, they all are basically acting in the same way, and that is take no prisoners, shoot to kill.
The cruelty is the point.
I don't think it's a spoiler to say there's no storylines about POWs in this war movie. There are no prisoners taken by any sides in anything. So Garland, he definitely is trying to make a point. He definitely has the story he wants to tell. And it's a story about the horrors of war as seen through people trying to remain as objective as possible. So there's no question about that. But then there are people who, I fall on this side, where it's like, I don't want to be spoon-fed the answers. I don't want to be told exactly how this world came to be. I just want to know that Alex Garland in his head knows how this world came to be. And I don't think he could do that.
I think
if you sat down,
I think there's enough, really.
I don't think he can tell you why California and Texas were the two states who, by getting together, started this all off.
You don't think that by hearing that there is an Antifa massacre when Lee Smith's origin story is that when she was a college student, so approximately 20 years ago, she took photos of what was described as an Antifa massacre.
Yes.
Which to me is like possibly in Northern California or, something in Portland, whatnot. So we have an idea of some, not an inciting incident, not the inciting incident, but we have an idea of what the country was like 20 years ago. And if this is the same timeline as ours, it makes it feel as if this movie takes place in the 2040s. 2050. I mean, like,
Yeah, Antifa, that's a late 20-teens
Yeah.
coinage of phrase. That was one of the things that, to me, further added to the chaos of what exactly started all this. And, like, is there an actual line that Alex Garland can draw between some supposed Antifa massacre, which would have occurred, you know, I guess in the timeline of this movie, assuming Antifa is still coined post 2016, or at least around that same time, that you have Kirsten Dunst as a 20-year-old then. Now she's playing close to 40. So first of all, it takes place in the future, which not one thing about the production design of this movie indicates the future, which is fine. Like, but again, it goes to me that Alex Garland.
I don't know if look, I think we all saw Madam Web. Madam Web takes place in the year 2003. We all seen it multiple times. The hit that it is takes place in the year 2003. I mean, if it's not for just the billboards that they digitally put in there, it's how much of a difference is it? I mean,
to me, Alex Garland's point, first and foremost, was to take war imagery associated with historically more war-torn areas than North America and transpose those images to modern-day present North America. And that was his goal. That's where he succeeded the most. And I don't think he gave much consideration to how and why we arrived at those images. I don't think he cared as much. And I think part of that is evident in the fact that he's setting a movie in the future, but still is not doing anything to indicate that it's the year that it's in or the future, because he still wants it to play as modern day present, which is why I wish that Antifa line wasn't there. Yeah. And so that's why, to me, a lot of these, what few breadcrumbs that we get, they just mess with other breadcrumbs that are dropped. Everything's in conflict, which is fine. You know, if your goal isn't to present some sort of cohesive, he's clearly not interested in setting up a world where someone else can then come in and connect all the dots and release a novelization, release a comic book, ancillary media that fleshes out all these things. He's not doing like what Zack Snyder's doing with all of his Netflix,
no, canon doesn't make a difference. He doesn't give a shit about canon.
Yeah, he's not trying to canonize his own work. I mean, he cares about canons to a certain degree, Ben. I think we can agree to that. Just not the canon of literature.
Yes.
How dare you come into this office and bark at me like some little junkyard dog? I am the President of the United States.
We're getting into kind of like, what do we know about this world? And it feeds into what do we know about the president?
Well, I mean, again, the breadcrumbs that we get all come through Nick Offerman. Like, we know when a movie opens, he's preparing to give a speech, practicing. We don't see where he's practicing mirror, camera, to his aides, wherever.
No, but later on in the movie, we know that he's been holed up in the White House. It's a very much like a Hitler's bunker scenario.
Hitler's bunker, Saddam's palace, Osama's vacation retreat, compound. Yeah.
OJ's
Brentwood home. Too soon, Ben. I mean, not too soon for his death.
I just want people to know that look, you need to make an OJ's dead joke. That way people don't think that we recorded this podcast like weeks ago. Like that, they're like, oh, you're saying like you saw it yesterday. You highfalutin Hollywood insiders probably got invited to the premiere that happened weeks ago, and you're recording it then. It's like, no, we're recording it this week. The week that OJ Simpson finally died.
So when we first meet this president, he's rehearsing a speech. I guess it's the closest thing we get to anything Trumpian, in that he's clearly trying to find the best way to describe something that's happened as the best thing ever.
It is, but at the same time, we don't know how poorly he's doing.
Not only how poorly he's doing, he's starting by basically talking about some military victory, and he's trying to figure out, do I call it the
greatest
some
military?
Historians are already calling the greatest military victory of all time, the greatest American military victory of all time. Like he's changing the words around: greatest American military all time. Like, to try to find the most boisterous way to brag about this victory, which may or may not have happened.
Yeah, most likely didn't happen.
Some are already calling it the greatest victory in the history of military campaigns.
And then we hear his voice throughout on radio addresses, because our reporters are traveling through mostly American regions.
Yeah.
They don't go to California. They don't go to Texas. They don't go to Carolina. They don't go to Florida.
Well, we start in New York. We're in New York. We're in New York to start the movie.
But most of the media that we do get exposed to, which is not that much for a movie about media, is within the American territory. So we do get to hear more clips of the president speaking throughout the movie. You know, he's on TV, he's on the radio. And then we find out at a certain point that he's a third-term president who disbanded
The FBI.
Well, yeah, that's it. And so somehow him being in the third term and disbanding the FBI was a precursor to what we got.
Yes.
Now, why it doesn't track with the Antifa massacre thing, because, okay, so if he's in his third term, then we're looking at years 8 through 12. So he himself couldn't have been responsible for a massacre that was witnessed by a 40-year-old Kirsten Dunst.
No, but it's a
18
it's a
years
precursor
earlier.
to the kind of society that allowed it to happen and permitted it to happen. And what does that say about the kind of government that moves forward from that? I mean, it in no way does it say that he is responsible for it, but it does set us on a path to allow a man like him to take power.
So your theory is his predecessor, who he should be aligned with in order to keep the hatred going,
Yeah.
was responsible for the Antifa massacre. And you're going to say in California, maybe Berkeley.
Yeah.
You know, and that pissed off California. And then say President Offerman himself, when he came to power, did something equally abhorrent in Texas.
Well, look, that he used airstrikes against American citizens. That could have been in Texas. That also could have been in California.
It could have been, I took that as something that happened throughout the war. But you're saying that, no, the offhanded reference to him using airstrikes against U.S. citizens was something that started the war.
I mean, very well could have. I mean, we had the former guy when he was clearing out the area in front of the White House so he could hold up his Bible.
Oh, yeah. Well, the White House here has got a very different wall in front of it
Yes.
than it does in our timeline. And so depending on how long this war has been going on, it's either something that was started when the war started or something that preceded the start of the war. And so my take is it preceded the start of the war.
Yeah.
So yeah, things were already, they saw where the tides were turning. Anything else about the president we can infer?
We don't know. What else do we know?
Well, we know he hates journalists. When Kirsten Dunst and Wagner Moura first start telling, people on the DL that they're headed to DC, this thought is, wait, that's too far. Like, even for war journalists, that's too fucking far because they shoot journalists on site in DC.
Well, also too far. They're like, it's not even worth it because the war is practically over. He's losing.
Well, that comes later.
Nobody's shocked that the tide is going to turn at that point. They want to get there. They want to get there before the Western Front gets there because they know the president isn't long for this world after that.
Yeah. Kirsten Dunst, her goal, we already said Wagner Moura's role as Joel. He wants to talk to the president, to do the last interview with him. Kirsten wants to get a shot of him. And what's interesting is how frequently throughout the movie they do present these four journalists as kind of a militia group in their own right, except instead of being armed with weapons, they're armed with camera gear. And in fact, the way that Jesse's, they give her specifically a film camera.
Yeah.
And showing her developing it on the go because she has to reload, because she has to literally cock the gun, the camera, to get her next shot in. There's a lot of parallels that Alex Garland is clearly trying to play up here. In fact, that's also the other issue I had. So even though I overall enjoyed the movie as a work of art, the political loving, I don't know if you know this, Ben, I started a podcast all about politics and film. So you can understand my frustration.
Can I subscribe? Wait, can I subscribe to that?
It's, behind a paywall.
Okay.
Yeah. So now was I a little disappointed by the fact that I'm not sure I can say conclusively what events actually, what is the timeline that this movie took place in between present day and this war. But I'm not even sure what this is about journalists, because sometimes like, oh, this is a love letter to people who put themselves in danger.
Oh no! I mean, it's definitely not a love letter to it. I mean,
but that's just it. Is it a love letter, or is it an indictment of how fucking insane these people are?
No, it's an indictment of sitting back and just documenting doesn't move the needle. Documenting isn't doing something. Kirsten Dunst's character has watched so many tragic things happen being a war journalist across the world, and she's never stepped in. She's allowed terrible things to happen, and it's weighed on her. And finally, she does step in.
At one point, yes, we'll get to that. But she also gets to a really nice line in the middle where she's talking about, objectivity. And it's like she takes the pictures so that other people can make the decisions on what to think about what's going on. And if she didn't have her objectivity, she couldn't be there. And if she can't be there, then other people not in the war zones won't know the truth, won't be able to vote the way they need to vote, won't be able to protest the way they need to protest, won't be able to support or not support what's going on. So she does spell out in a very clean manner. And I thought in a way that at the time did not feel like a weakness in her. It felt like her very clearly stating where her moral compass is, and her moral compass does point. There's no conflict in her to what her role is. Like she has to do what she has to do, because if she doesn't do it, no one else does it. And if no one does it, then these wars might never end. Which, of course, gets to the bigger question. The other issue I have with this movie is cautionary tales about war ultimately fail because, and this isn't my thing, I think this might be a Roger Ebert thing.
Usually if I'm deciding between two things, I'm like, is this an Eric Buckman thing or a Roger Ebert thing?
And that it's making a war movie that with an anti-war message is ultimately self-defeating, because any war movie with actual explosions in it is going to in some way glorify war itself. Yeah. So those are my three issues with the movie. The lack of political clarity. I'm still not sure what they were saying about journalists in general, love letter versus indictment, because other people have taken it as a love letter. And in fact, people who work either as war correspondents or adjacent to it in the media are like, wow, finally a movie that really gets at what it's like to have one of those roles, and then this the issue of, I think it's trying to be an anti-war movie, but I don't think it succeeds on that front, because it does make the war look really cool at times.
I mean, the last battle is the last action sequence is phenomenal.
Yeah. In fact, do we want to transfer into the spoiler territory and talk about that last act? Let's
talk quickly, because I mean, again, podcast about fake president.
Yeah.
We've waded into the politics. But I mean, I would love to. We get a little tour of the White House, so we might as well talk about it.
How? Because I'm the goddamn president of the United States of America.
Okay, so we're in the third act here. The third act to me is the weakest part narratively of the film, because the narrative was kind of over in my mind. Like, if you want to talk about a movie that's about the inanity of war and how these war journalists put themselves in the line and frequently do so for reasons that can go from unclear to self-defeating. There's a point in this movie where these characters who've just been desperate to get to DC to talk to the president and photograph him before the Western forces take over the White House, they wake up and find out they were too late. And to me, there was a sense of defeat amongst them that if the movie had ended pretty close to that, I would have been like, wow, this might be the closest ever to an anti-war movie that actually makes you feel like everything was for naught, and that not one of these bullets was fired for a meaningful reason, and that everyone who's dead, journalist, civilian, soldier, died for a reason that no one can clearly articulate why. And then a whole other act happens where they follow the troops into DC, and you basically get a recreation of the third act from XXX State of the Union. That's what I thought about the entire time. Same third act. Tanks on Pennsylvania Avenue trying to chop off the head of the U.S. government.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they follow, even though they're not embedded with the Western Front, we do meet other journalists who are officially embedded with them, because the Western Front, they love journalists. Maybe that's the California doing more than the Texas doing. Like, I don't see Abbott
No.
or whoever future Texas governor. Maybe it's a world where, because of what a conservative Republican president does to Texas, it does turn Texas blue. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. But our heroes, our journalist heroes, are following the Western Front down Pennsylvania Avenue as it's an A24 film. At this point, it's not A24. It's now a sequel to White House Down.
Yeah.
It's a big, if the entire movie had been this, the budget would have been $200 million. But obviously they saved all the money just for this sequence so they could fit the whole thing for, 70 mil? They did a good job. Through D.C., as the Western Front are fighting the last remaining forces of
they're loyalists. I mean, it's not even they're fighting for America. It's presented that they're battling people who are fighting for the president.
And they have to tear down that wall. They have to get through a heavily fortified wall that's been put up around the White House. And then they get into the White House. And at this point, our soldiers, even though they're not embedded, they're not just traveling with the soldiers that are doing this. They're kind of calling the shots. At some point, the soldiers are like, wait, the reporters are going in. Let's follow them. They know something we don't know. So they're kind of leading the soldiers into the White House.
Well, it's after we see three beasts, three of the president's cars get fucking demolished by the Western Front.
Two Suburbans and a beast. It's a decoy attempt to get them to focus on a fake president? A decoy president?
A fake president.
Leading the White House. Kirsten Dunst is the one who realizes, no, the president's not in that fucking car. He's still inside. And so she goes in first. Joel follows in later. Jesse goes with them. And all of a sudden the soldier says, hey, where are the reporters going? Let's follow them. They go in with them. They get into the White House. And all I could think of, I know where the president is. He's in the POC. He's underground. They're going to have to puncture that bunker. No, he's hanging out in the Oval Office.
Oval Office, yeah.
So
I don't know why he wouldn't take the elevator to the ground floor.
Yeah, that's the big hole.
There's the train. There's a subway that goes underneath. We've established that in other movies.
But even without the whole movie logic, even if you go by just what's known about the White House.
Shit. If we've all seen Dave, there's just the tunnel you could just stroll right out of.
Alex Garland clearly has not. Yeah, no, but they go into the residence first. They make their way from the residence into the West Wing. The connection point with the residence, the West Wing, it's the press briefing room. They go to the press briefing room. They're going towards the Oval Office, and then you get
they do a little walk. It's basically like a walk and talk. It's basically like any scene out of the West Wing.
Yeah, it's a walk and talk and shoot. Yeah,
walk and talk and shoot.
Yeah, and
they've upped it. They've added like an extra layer to something that Sorkin never even considered. Building on the genre.
And then as they're making their way to it's really just three journalists at this point, maybe 4 or 5 soldiers taking on the last remaining Secret Service agents who are super loyal to this president. So they got that part right. And the moment you had referenced earlier where Kirsten Dunst finally puts the camera down to do something is they get to just outside the Oval Office, and the Jesse character, she steps out into the hallway
to get the perfect shot
at a very opportune moment. And when Kirsten realizes that she's left herself vulnerable to being shot by a Secret Service agent, Kirsten Dunst pushes her out of the way.
Takes some shots herself.
Gets shot in the back, which is when the soldiers, Wagner Moura and Cailee Spaeny, they go into the Oval Office.
We finally get to see the president again.
Yeah. And what happens here, Ben?
We see this scene in the trailer. We see it very quickly. He's dragged from basically underneath the desk.
Yeah, you see a stunt double get dragged. You don't see his face until after the dragging is more or less done.
And at this point, Wagner Moura asks for a quote.
First, he orders the troops to don't shoot him.
Don't shoot him.
Yeah, like he tells these troops who've been told that their job one is to shoot the president on sight as soon as you have him in your sights. And he's like, no, don't do that. I got a story to tell. I got a file. Yeah. And his question is,
was there a precise question, or was it just what was any last words?
It's like anything you'd like to say right now about this moment as you're being captured. And of course, he knows he's not being captured.
No.
So Nick Offerman says,
He begs for his life. Please don't kill me.
and then they kill him.
He's like,
And
first Wagner says, that'll do.
Yeah, and then they kill him.
Yeah.
and then they pose for
The Osama picture. Yeah.
They pose for pictures taken by the Jesse character, Cailee Spaeny, while Kirsten Dunst lays out in the hallway, presumably dead. But here's the problem. Okay, going back to that. Is she dead? They're all wearing bulletproof vests.
Yeah. We don't see any puddles of blood.
She's not shot in the head. You don't see any blood at all.
You know, maybe Civil War 2. We'll get another Civil War.
So that's the other thing.
Or I guess it would be Civil War 3.
So the movie only works if she is dead. That's why I'm like, okay, I'll treat her like she's dead, because if she's not dead, then whatever they're trying to say about these final moments of the movie, about especially what you say about her finally taking a stand and dying for it, not a stand, but finally taking an action beyond just photographing,
Documenting.
things. Yeah. And paying the ultimate price. She has to pay that price or else that message doesn't get across. But that's the one part of the film that, to me, lacked clarity from a filmmaking point of view. Because it didn't play like she was definitively dead. It really played like she died in the second to last episode of like a prestige Netflix TV series where it's like a cliffhanger. Is she dead? Is she not dead? And so you leave open the opportunity to bring her back in the next episode or next season, where it's like, yeah, good thing I was wearing that flak jacket. So that was my other kind of hanging issue. I mean, that said, it's a short movie. It's well made. In 5 years' time, I don't think anyone's going to be as bothered by its lack of prescient details about the current age.
Well, I think it depends who becomes president.
That's why I said 5 years from now and say 4 years from now. But I do think especially people who I follow on social media, they're all political junkies like I am. And I thought like you are too, but I guess you're not. So I can see why they'd be bothered about the lack of politics the same way that I get bothered when I watch a new Star Trek movie or TV series that goes out of its way to distance itself from the Star Trek canon that I've already adopted as the truth.
It would be one thing if it was pretending that the politics meant something and it didn't. To me, the politics didn't matter because of the way this country has been going the past few years. That I don't need a reason to. I don't need the exact reason why in this version of the United States there is a civil war. Why states look to secede from the union. It doesn't make a difference because I get it based off of our current politics. It doesn't need to be explained to me. I'm along for the ride for this version.
Well, the headcanon is clearly something did happen that did not happen in our timeline. Maybe it still could happen, but could happen, that further shakes up the political sides as we see them even more. And so this movie takes place post that event.
Yeah.
And that event clearly was not the Antifa massacre. It has to be something else. And I just wish I had some greater sense of what that was, or at least some sense that Alex Garland knows what that was. I don't think he does. And that's why nibble at me.
Eric, I feel like you're okay with an Antifa massacre. You're like, if they kill a bunch of Antifa people, is that really going to set things off for the rest of the country? No.
Here's the thing.
You're like a good Antifa is a dead Antifa.
I mean,
and I was like, whoa, Eric, I can't believe you just said that on our podcast for the world to hear. Eric Buckman. You said that. I didn't say it. But
look, speaking of Antifa, that's the other thing that I thought was weird about this movie. And it was like, I sat through the end credits because you sat through the end credits. I don't know were we waiting for a post-credit sequence? Anyway, and that's what I just casually see out of my corner of my eye as it gets to the very end that they got archival footage that were officially licensed and they were thanking the sources of this. And one of them was Andy Ngo, an anti-fascist, like he's a right-wing provocateur.
Or he's a fascist, and then there's anti-fascist.
But that's just the thing. His thing is going into, especially.
No, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah, it's going into any sort of progressive protest and trying to find some way.
Although he does he gets like the concrete milkshakes, tossed at him, like. He does. He's treated like shit. I mean, for a reason.
No, but he goes in there to instigate things and then claim, "Oh, look at me, I'm a victim. What did I do?" And then he puts the footage out there. He's a bad actor who acts in bad faith, who only cares about clout, who clearly has a financial angle to all this. And Alex Garland decided to throw some more money his way to get some footage that was used. Because throughout the movie, even though they don't use much stock footage, or at least in the latter half of the movie, at the beginning, you do see flashes of actual civil unrest throughout the world that basically it's supposed to be like stuff that Kirsten Dunst's character has experienced and witnessed. And so we do see a few things that took place domestically, in which I have to presume that's where his footage came from. And it's like, couldn't get that for anyone else? I don't know, it's just weird. It's just, whatever. It was annoying. Sit through 10 minutes of credits just to see that guy's name.
Motherfucker, I'm not asking if you're interested. I'm the president of the United fucking States, man.
Well, what else, is there anything else we want to talk about with the president? I mean, the things we normally say is like, how is this president going to be remembered?
As the same way that Osama's remembered?
Yeah.
They'll be talking about, where were you the day that
the Western forces fucking shot him up in the Oval Office?
No one wanted to have a trial for the guy. Were they worried that a jury would be too sympathetic to him?
No, I think it's just a matter of what Garland wants to say about. I think it's what Garland wants to say is that it's not on both sides. There's not like, there doesn't need to be a good guys or bad guys when you're talking about a war of this magnitude. That there aren't.
It reminds me of Top Gun Maverick, how they never name, the bad guys in that movie. They always leave the helmets on, give them some random flag we've never seen before and symbols. So is it North Korea? Is it China?
Like
is
that.
it in the Middle East?
I didn't care.
But that was also a popcorn movie.
Yeah.
So is this the A24 version of Top Gun Maverick? It's their popcorn movie? They're turning your brain off?
Eric, did you and I not eat popcorn during the movie? Answer the question. Did we eat
popcorn?
A little bit of popcorn.
We had a little bit of popcorn.
Yeah,
I mean, you got a lot more than I did.
I got a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, if you wanted some more, I would have given you some more popcorn, Eric.
His legacy sucks. He's the guy who allowed a civil war to happen and lose. He lost the civil war.
He lost.
Ben, he's the first American president to lose a civil war. That's his legacy.
That's his legacy.
His poll numbers, his approval rating, 0.
Yeah, 0. Pretty much 0. I mean, because anybody who really liked him is dead.
His party, which we didn't get to. If you had to guess, you kind of have to guess Republican, although I think he totally messes it up so that you can't say that conclusively in one way or the other. He clearly wants people who are sympathetic to wanting to succeed from the nation right now to go to this movie and actually get a hard-on from it. In many ways, Garland is being his own kind of provocateur in those regards. It's just the Top Gun Maverick of it all, leaving the bad guys so vague that you don't realize that the real bad guy is us. That's the message of that movie, right? Top Gun Maverick, the real bad guy.
Isn't that why at the end Tom Cruise held up a mirror to the camera?
Yeah, because it turns out that the bad guys underneath the helmets were like preschoolers.
Yeah,
he was just attacking children. Thetans, I think, where he's really. It's a Scientology.
It's a Scientology movie.
Yeah, that's why
they had all the Dutch angles.
All the Dutch angles and the whole. They were flying around a volcano the entire time.
The braids. That's why Miles Teller had those braids.
Where was I? I think we can kind of presume guess Republican, in which case he's trying to say that that's where the Republican Party has gone from Lincoln to Offerman. From the one who won a civil war to the one who lost. Same party.
Yeah, it's like Nick Offerman. Western forces were more like, Nick, let's off this man.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening. I'm presuming if you've gotten this far, it's because you've either seen the movie or didn't really intend to. Ben would say, see it.
I would definitely say, see it. Please.
I'd say, wait for video, maybe.
Wait for video. You want to see this on a big screen.
See it like we did in one of those AMC Dolby Premiere Theater experiences.
Okay, like if you want to save money, join Stubbs, and then go on Tuesdays. It's half price.
Do the fully reclining seats so that way if the movie's not your thing, you can get a nice nap out of it.
It would be very difficult to take a nap during this movie. The sound, there was like 2 times that I jumped off because of...
Oh, I couldn't have slept at all because 2 seats away was a woman who was really on the edge. Like, she reacted to everything.
Was she the one who talked when Kirsten got shot? That she was like, oh no!
Anyway, subscribe, rate, please rate us.
Please rate us. There's theme music by Johnny Sadoff. Our artwork's by Ann Hecker.
On Instagram and Threads, we're fake_president. You can email us at fakepresidents@gmail.com. In fact, we did get some feedback from our last episode we still didn't talk about.
Oh, yeah. This letter nailed you. You got nailed.
I feel like I got something wrong with the West Wing.
With Nick, which ironically was for the first episode, which had Nick Offerman in it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we'll save this for next week, next month, next episode. We'll go to letters then. Write in. Let me know what I've gotten wrong or what Ben has gotten wrong. We'll cover it next time.
Perfect.
Till then, I'm Eric Buckman.
And I'm Ben Oren. Bye.
And this has been Fake President.
Bye. Not to be confused with the sexy mannequin movie, Mannequin.
Or Mannequin 2.
I mean, she's a little older. I guess she's still sexy. Not to be like that guy.
Wait. You think Mannequin 2 is a direct sequel of Mannequin, but it's the same mannequin, just older?
Yeah.
It's a different mannequin.
It's not sexy. A little older.
It's whole different characters. In fact, the mannequin of Mannequin 2 is like a cursed princess. A whole different backstory than the mannequin in Mannequin 1.
What about it? Is Andrew McCarthy?
No. So
Andrew McCarthy's not in Mannequin 2?
No. Okay.
But in Mannequin 2, isn't she like this girl who's like pretty in pink and he's trying to like date her, and then the mannequin has a friend named Ducky?
That's pretty in pink. No, Mannequin 1 is, you're right, Andrew McCarthy and Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall, yes.
And it's like...
And Hollywood.
And the backstory there, it's like Hollywood, I think... Hollywood might be in both of them.
Yeah.
Hollywood's in both movies. But in the first movie, the backstory that makes Kim Cattrall is she's actually... And I guess this isn't the part
she's
of
Egyptian.
She's an Egyptian who gets in some sort of Egyptian curse and is frozen into a mannequin-like being who winds up a mannequin in a store and is freed from her mannequinness by brat packer Andrew McCarthy. And in the sequel, Mannequin 2 on the Move, not to be confused with Arthur 2 on the Rocks, Mannequin 2 on the Move, which came out in 1991, it takes place in the backstory part, the Germanic kingdom of Hauptmann-König.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Wait, so who's the sexy mannequin in that one?
Christy Swanson.
Oh, okay, yes.
Is transformed through some sort of...
That's Christy Swanson before she went cuckoo.
Yeah, long before. Where some sort of like middle-aged, dark-age curse turns her into a wooden statue that gets confused for a mannequin throughout time and put into a department store, to be founded by William Ragsdale.
H. Macy. No?
No.
Not William H. Macy. William H. Macy doesn't take over for Andrew McCarthy and Mannequin 2 on the Move?
I don't even understand the reference. Why would you connect the two?
Because he started with William, and so I was trying to...
Got it.
I mean, if William H. Macy turned out to have been part of the seventh member of the Brat Pack, wouldn't that be a wonderful little thing to share with the world right now? It's what we need.